Eirik waited 4 years to buy one of these. Let's hope it was worth it. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. This has been a long-awaited review. It's the Gibson.com exclusive double cut Les Paul Jr. They're finally making them again outside of the Gibson custom shop in the full-on gloss finish, and they've got the new 50s flavors to them. These first launched around mid-2024 in a walnut finish only, and that was pretty exciting because that was the first time we saw this model come back into Gibson USA's literature, outside of maybe the Rick Beato double cuts. But those were slightly different with their satin open pore finishes. These are a little bit more finished. But about a month ago, we got an update with a TV yellow as well as a vintage cherry example. And those are like the tried and true original 50s colors. Outside of the Rick Beatos, it was around 2019, they had a DC Tribute Les Paul. That one had a maple neck. It was top loaded. Gotta remember, I'm talking exactly spec the way it was in the 50s. This is the first time we've seen the DC Junior in a long time. So it's making a lot of people happy, and these are only being priced at $1,699. Now, in Gibson land, that's a really good deal for one of these, but there's a lot of other manufacturers that can get you something similar for a lot less. But Eirik has been waiting forever for the right release of these, and he decided this is the one, but he's in Norway, so he needed my help getting it to him. So everyone say thank you for sharing your new guitar with us. Let's go ahead and review this. Straight out of the box, I've got to say, I'm impressed. This looks really good. Sometimes Gibson USA TV Yellow doesn't quite hit the mark, but this one, yeah, it does for me anyways, but I'm not the most into the vintage double cuts. I mean, they're cool guitars, but I haven't had a lot of them. But if you're curious, how much does a custom shop version of this guitar cost? It's $4,000. Now, if you look at them side by side, as with any Gibson USA versus custom shop production, there's going to be differences. So what does this one do? The custom shop ones, they join level to the body, whereas this new version actually sets the neck into the body just a little bit farther, basically 1 fret depth. As far as the spacing between the pickups and tailpiece, that's going to be a bit different. We've got the golden silk screen up here with our button style tuners. However, look at the custom shop, you can see it's got the vintage style ferrules, whereas this has the screw-on bushings, and the custom shop will have the 3 inline tuners, whereas the USA just utilizes single ones. No ink stamp serial number over here. Your headstock shape and the outlines of the body are going to be just a little bit more accurate to a vintage one, whereas they're a little bit more streamlined over here. The custom shop one has a really cool recreation faux alligator skin case. To be honest, I'm surprised this one gets a case at all, and you didn't just get a gig bag, so I consider that a win. But that's why I'm saying, in Gibson land, this is a good deal for this particular guitar. Because previous to these coming out, you just really didn't even have an option. I'd imagine the neck profiles will be a little bit different as well. This one seems to have like a slimmer C-shaped neck, but not like too blade thin. But so far, I like the weight distribution and the balance, the wood grain's working for me, but you also get some cool goodies in the case. Because historically, these have just a plain wraparound bridge. So is your intonation going to be perfect? No, that's just kind of how this model is. But check this out. They're actually including one of the lightning bar ridged examples in the case. That way it can look historically correct over here, but if you want slightly better intonation, you can throw this bad boy on. I thought that was quite cool of Gibson USA. And it's not like they steal the multi-tool from you to afford that either. You still get that, the Gibson polishing cloth, an app pamphlet, silica packet, and case keys, with pre-packed checklist, a basic Gibson strap, and for historical preservation, the original box tag, and the price hang tag. So to learn more about this new release, let's go ahead and throw it onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Well, here's what we're looking at with everything removed. Check out that neck tenon. They sank that well into the body to give you extra stability. And you can see how nice and tight that they've got it. So if for some strange reason you wanted to route it out for a neck pickup, I mean, you technically could. But now let's check out this pick guard. It is a faux tortoiseshell colored one, so red with a little bit of white and orange. When it comes to this style pick guard, you can get a real celluloid one, which looks better, but will off-gas and destroy your guitar slowly but surely. Or you can get this kind of more ugly version, but at least your guitar's safe. Important to note, the walnut version just gets a straight up black one. But if you wanted to rock it with nothing, this is what you'd be left with. Nothing fancy over here, just a P90 dog ear. This one dates to October 3rd of 2024. 24. And our route looks like this. LPJD, likely for Les Paul Jr. double cut. And we got a TORT24. As far as the cleanliness of the routes, actually pretty good along the edges. A little rough down here, but I'd call that acceptable. And hey, don't forget, it also says TV down here for the finish. But being a dog-eared P90, you put a plastic cover over top of that, and then you screw it into the top using 2 of them. And within the circuit, that reads 7.92k ohms. And you control it with a master volume, master tone. No fancy electronics on this one, just straight up P90. Here's a look at the stock tailpiece. How is it different from a regular tailpiece? Well, it's got these little set screws in the side, and that's how you do the intonation. So if that doesn't make sense to you, you can screw that in to kind of move your bridge a little bit this way. So you can tilt it back and forth how it rests against those posts. And that's how you get the best intonation you can. Otherwise, it looks about the same with the Advanced Plating Incorporated branding. The same thing is true for the Lightning Bar version. However, you have the intonation ridge right here in the general layout that you would want on a regular set bridge. If you're using modern day wound gauges anyway. It has the same screws over there too. So that's what that would look like if you wanted the more modern take on that. Also worth noting, this is a heavier tailpiece. That pretty much covers most of the front. Outside of just taking a second to appreciate the wood grain. If it's multi-pieced, I cannot see it on the front, but you got a lot of cool wood grain on this particular one. We'll have to look at the end grain on the back. But it's a slab mahogany body, flat top, flat back, no contours, mahogany neck with a rosewood board. Went ahead and conditioned it for him, so we won't have to do that after its international journey. But as far as your inlays, it's just the dots and acrylic. Nothing fancy. I measure a 1.7 inch nut width, increasing to 2.09 at the 12th. First fret neck depth 0.81 and 0.91 at the 12th. There's a look at that neck profile, 1st fret and 12th fret. It's a rounded C shape. But now that I have it on the bench and can actually feel it in a more regular sense, it nearly has a D-shaped neck to it. As far as you've got some shoulder on the edge and then the back does get kind of flat. But ultimately it is C-shaped, but definitely a little on the slimmer side. Got the normal 12-inch fretboard radius. As far as our headstock, we can see the Gibson silkscreen, as well as the Les Paul Jr. Here's what our truss rod's looking like. It's in great shape. And here's another difference between the Gibson USA versus Custom Shop. This one just gets the regular USA style plastics rather than the historic spec one. Which in this case, the USA might actually look fancier because it's multi-ply rather than single-ply black. So now let's talk about the controversy behind this model. There are posts on Facebook groups claiming that the bridge is in the significantly wrong place for this model. Measured at the 12th fret and doubled, it's 24 3/4 inch scale. Now if you come down to the bridge and you mark that off, here's what we've got as far as the perfect intonation line. It does seem like everything is very far back and like the center here is at 25. Now, please keep in mind, I'm giving you this information to do what you want with it because I am not a super professional setup guy. My strong suit is the history of Gibson models. I really don't do anything with detailed setups. I do know that this is a model that doesn't typically have perfect intonation. However, these screws are not engaged at all, and screwing them in farther will actually pull it away farther. So to me, it seems to make sense that maybe this should have been like moved up here, like almost touching the P90. That way you do have more intonation room for everything. Now to be completely fair, here is a regular Les Paul with a normal bridge. Here it is centered at 24 3/4. You can tell every string's a little bit different. That's why you've got adjustable saddles, and most of the lower strings actually do fall closer to that 25. But like for example, the low E on this one is about a 1/16 of an inch to the 25. As far as how the intonation is now, with the E in tune, 12th fret harmonic, it's coming in a little flat. Fretted note matches the harmonic. A string, about the same. D string, 12th, fretted. That one's getting closer. G string. That one's pretty good. B. Little flat one fretted. E string. Again, that was not a professional test. You should have a nice strobe tuner for stuff like that. That's just a clip on the bridge to make it easier for you guys to see, to kind of know what to expect out of the box. Now, I'm actually lucky. I do have a Billy Joe Armstrong signature, one of these, so I wonder, is that one like that too? Here we are at 24 3/4. Here we are at the bridge. Yeah, unfortunately, I think the rumors are true. That's not the correct placement for the bridge. Because if you remember correctly, the other one's almost centered at 25 down there. So if you want better intonation, you might seek out one of these expensive guys, the Billy Joe Armstrong signature. These are only expensive because they made so few of them. But they look vastly different too. This one's a more striking mustard yellow, whereas this one has like some grayish elements to it. Interesting. Oh, and this one's like twice as heavy as this one. I wonder if there's an aftermarket bridge that doesn't have as much metal around here, because you could technically file some of that away if it would still be strong enough to hold on to everything else, because then that would move it what you would need. Otherwise, to fix it, you have to plug the holes and re-drill it to where you want the bridge.
Now, I did reach out to Gibson about this, and their official claim is that the bridge that they include, the lightning bar that we were talking about earlier, will fix the issue. Now, kind of a bonehead move on my part. I was in such a rush to get this to Eirik, and I was so dumbfounded that it seemed to be the wrong place. I didn't take the official measurements with strings installed with that other bridge. I only eyeballed it, and it just didn't seem like it would be right, because it seems like the lower 4 strings need to be higher than those intonation ridges made it. But since I didn't measure that little thin piece right there, maybe it is different enough. I talked to Eirik about this issue, and he said, oh yeah, I bet one of those Mojo Axe tailpieces is going to fix that thing right up. So that's his plan on this one. And he decided to keep it as is. So for the rest of this demo, keep in mind this is with the stock tailpiece, nothing modified. To make up for my blunder, I do have this Les Paul Vixen that came stock from the Gibson factory in the late 2000s with one of those lightning bar ones. So here it is centered at the 12th fret, 24 3/4 scale. Now let's come down to the bridge. And with these screws completely disengaged, here's how it falls. It's just slightly over the halfway point of the bridge. That 25 does fall just slightly flat of that, which is about where it should be. But here it is at 24 3/4. So if anybody wants to new guitar day one of the other colors, I'll redo my measurements. That's just such a blunder on my part. I'm sorry. But hopefully that's all the information you need with the stock tailpiece and the proposed new upgrade from Gibson.
Now we can move on to the backside. The wood grain's not as expertly hidden back here. You can see definitely a center seam, so maybe 2 pieces. However, this looks like another line to me, but when you look at the end grain, it's only that center one that really stands out, where I would expect another one to be is like right here, and I'm not seeing it in this lighting situation, but it might be there. Those Gibson wood guys can be very convincing with their joins. But here's what your control cavity looks like if you wanted to modify it with anything. You just got your 500K Gibson branded pots with an orange drop capacitor. Output jack's located on the side with a black plastic one, large strap button in both our locations. And moving up the back side of the neck, it's pretty much just more of the same. Eventually leading us to our Gibson Deluxe style tuners, our Made in USA stamp. And this one dates to 2024, 277th day, initial batch, production number 15. But this slab guitar is pretty light, 6 pounds, 8.8 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. trying to play more chords up here just to see if that's acceptable to you. It looks great. It's really light and resonant. Now that'll vary example to example. This one is very good in that aspect, but personally for me, I don't enjoy the fretboard on this one. The neck profile makes the board feel like ridiculously flat and wide, and I just couldn't get into the groove with this one. But if you like that kind of wider feeling neck that doesn't have a lot of beef to it on the back, you're probably going to enjoy this a lot. I'd probably prefer something a little bit more rounded myself, but hey, that's just my own personal preferences. So I hope this review helps you make an informed decision whether one of these is right for you or not. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow on the next one. Take care.